Aloha Pa, the Baha'i greetings to everyone in the planet, Baha'is and non-Baha'is alike. Today is 16th of March. Time right now is 11:43 in Guelph, Ontario. And I'm going to start a new chapter, the 5th chapter, which would be the spiritual deed. As I spoke in the past, if you have heard or listened to these programs, the book 2, it is basically about the individual and his capacity and his relationship to himself, really. And I brought the idea that our instinctive desires causing us to have this modes that creates the habits, and the habits gets into the ethics. And I spoke in the ethics that I spoke about philanthropy, I spoke about social freedom, freedom fighters, political freedoms, and environmentalists, and so on. These type of people who are on the good deeds, really, according to their conceptions, and they're trying to do something good. They are very ready to hear about the Baha'i faith. This has been my experience. And basically it just shows that the ethical values, if the moral values, ethical values increases and goes up progressively, makes the people interested to hear the Baha'i ideas, and definitely the life story of Baha'u'llah. So this is the most important topics, really, chapters of all my speeches and my talks. I don't know how I liked it to be really 100% like sufficient, all, and what is the word to use? Inclusive would be all-embracing, to cover every aspect. I doubt I can do all of that, but I made myself some preparations. Essentially, in the Baha'i faith, Shoghi Effendi has done absolutely a fantastic work of categorizing and classifying the subjects of the Kitab al-Aqdas, the most holy book of the Baha'is, which I'll get into it. We can see that the spiritual deeds in the Baha'i faith have two aspects to it. There's two angles. Some of them are personal. It's the relationship between you and your God, yourself, and the other one is spiritual. It has a spiritual, angle to it. What I mean is, when you look at the rule and the commandment of Baha'u'llah in the Baha'i faith, things like obligatory prayers, fasting, going to pilgrimage, all that are more like a traffic sign, as I said before. It is, there are measures that helps you not to fall into the ditch. But strictly speaking, they do not result into the spiritual qualities. But I'm going to speak detail. Some of the Baha'is, if they're hearing this, they say, oh, I've gone wrong. Just let me explain myself. For example, if you study the religions, right from the history allows us, look at the Christianity and Islam, for example. All the Pharisees that they sentenced Jesus Christ to death, they were all 100% following the rules of the Torah. They were all doing their prayers, their circumcisions, anything you name it. But they ended up not understanding Jesus Christ, and they killed Son of God. The same thing happened at the time of Muhammad. His uncle, one of his uncles, is called Abu Jahl, the father of folly. He used to be called the father of wisdom. About one of the wisest men in Arabia those days. But he totally misunderstood Muhammad, and the Prophet of God was denied, by him. The other ones, same thing. And in the Baha'i faith, especially speaking, basically all the enemies of baha'u'llah and the Bab, all the killers, they were really divines and ecclesiastics and clergies. According to themselves, they were very pious. They thought, oh, we do our prayer, obligatory prayer, and we do so on and so on and so on. And those who deny the most the Baha'i faith today also are those who are attached to their these spiritual things that they do, like in Saudi Arabia, in Iran. The fundamental Jews, Christians, Pope. These guys are very well attached to their religion, and they do all these daily chores, spiritual activities, so-called. But at the same time, those things have made them very stupid. We have to be very careful that by this, I'm not nullifying, saying that there you go, then you don't need to pray, and you don't need to fast, and you don't need to do pilgrimage, then you don't need to say 95 times Allahu Akbar every day, and a lot of things. Absolutely not. That is not what I suggest at all. I'm just trying to tell you that, to understand that the religion of God, according to the Baha'u'llah, according to Abdul Baha'i, there are two parts to it. The first part is the essentials, and Abdul Baha says that's kindness, that's goodness, that's service to mankind. That is the same in all the religions. But there is changeable part in the religion, such as the prayers and the rules and the laws and daily things. Those things changes, Abdul Baha says, all the time. That's why precisely they do not produce any spiritual value. You wanted to go and pray as many times as you want, then you're not going to gain any spiritual value by it. But you get a lot of protections, when you pray. I'm going to discuss this. This is the topic. I have to get into detail of every one of them. So, what so far I'm trying to emphasize, that the action and the deed that results into the fruits, and it becomes a commodity in the next life, which we call the spiritual attribute, the spiritual qualities, those are not these ceremonial, changeable part of the religion, any religions. However, so going back to the other actions and the other deeds, which actually results in a spiritual quality. When a person does that, he becomes generous, he becomes faithful, he becomes loyal, he becomes brave, he becomes generous. Those qualities are very hard to come by for a person to be called brave, very difficult. So a lot of people do those things without even being Baha'i. Many of them. The philanthropy, that's what I spoke to. Bill Gates is example one. One of perhaps the biggest philanthropists of the time is Mr. Bin Laden. Him and his crew, this guy had probably $500 million. He married the princess in the Saudi Arabia kingdom. he was really very well off. And something went in his head that he wants to help Islam, he wants to help Muslims, and he thought Americans are the enemy and the Western culture is bad to his country and whatever. For this, he put his life totally in jeopardy to the point that you could say that when Jesus says that for a rich man to come to the kingdom as to go to the eye of the needle, this man must totally, good example that passed through the eye of the needle. Did he not really? Because we're in the West, we all know this fellow does not have the spiritual quality. He doesn't have the kindness. He goes, people getting killed, children, little children, has no pity on them. He thinks it's okay to kill people. He doesn't have the authority to say that. Only a divine, infallible prophet of God such as Jesus, such as Muhammad, Buddha, or Moses, or Baha'u'llah can order such things. Who is he to order all these things to happen? Life of so many thousands of people go to danger. So there you go. It seems there's a lot of giving on his part, but it's just like a bad business. Invested into a bad product. Bankruptcy is their end result. And so comes back to the questions now. Okay, we now the changeable part of the religion, which is the fasting and prayers and pilgrimage and all that, that's not going to help us to become a spiritual. In other words, go to heaven. Now, come back to the real actions, the real deed that causes these things. It seems it's very difficult there too, because there's a lot of people in there that they're giving. So many thousands, they're martyring their life according to themselves. They're killing themselves for their cause. But I'm sorry, the first thing happens after their death, believe me, as an authority I speak to you, immediately after they die, their spirit gets arrested for killing themselves to begin with. The body was not given to them to waste it, or was to do something else with it. And then they find out actually they've made a big mistakes. So, we got to get into this to what the source is then. Where do we go about this? Baha'u'llah, in the paves, which is written for the Baha'is, but the very first verse, he says that the very first things for man, the first thing prescribed unto man, I'm paraphrasing, is essentially, he says, is the recognition of him who is the manifestation of God. Okay? So religion is where we have to go in order to find out what the formulas are. I want to get into that more, but before that, let me just bring some of the